You know, if you can't pick something up off the floor and you can't squat down, or you couldn't pull yourself up if you had to, I mean, these are the things we need to be able to do just as humans. And yoga will give you a lot of that stuff, but it won't give you all of it.
That is Kathryn Bruni Young, and this is Tiny Conversations. I'm Brian Colley. Kathryn is a yoga teacher, Olympic weightlifter, and ridiculously strong person.
I try to focus on strength work and hand balancing into my yoga classes.
Seriously, you should see her handstands. She recently published an article on Elephant Journal named The New Wave of Yoga, in which she discusses how yoga isn't really enough and that you need to incorporate strength training. I thought that was a really interesting take on yoga and strength training, and so I decided to sit down with Kathryn at her yoga studio and ask her more about that topic and some of the feedback she's been receiving. Here's that conversation now. You were doing yoga and you were getting these injuries, and then went to weightlifting and incorporated that into your practice, and it reduced the injuries.
There isn't enough strength work to balance all that stuff out. So if you only do yoga for, a couple years, few years, it's going to feel great. You're going to notice your body limbers up, you feel better, your circulation is better, balance, like all these things are better. But if you keep only doing that for more than that, for, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, there's only so many times you can fold forwards and have happy hamstrings and happy glutes, and there is a limit to how much stretching your body can handle. I mean, the other side of the spectrum is, weightlifters and people that I see at the gym who I know they should be doing mobility work and yoga and stretching, but they might not necessarily do it all the time. And, there's also a lot of injury that goes along with that.
And one of the things that I find interesting, and maybe you can shed some light on this, is this, it's like balance in your physical practices creates sort of balance in everything else. It strength and mobility, like they all have to kind of be there and they all play a part. But for some reason, it seems to be the exception that people do these things, like do a variety of practices. One of the examples, when Adam Lynn started doing yoga, everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. But then I was thinking, well, that makes sense. Why wouldn't more baseball players, or why wouldn't more weightlifters do yoga, or vice versa? Why wouldn't more people doing yoga do some form of strength training? So I guess, why do you think there is, for lack of a better word, that resistance?
Sometimes I think that, yoga is not only exercise for a lot of people doing it. It's not only about the physical thing, and it's a little bit about the spiritual thing. And that's really great. But I also think that's almost a little bit dangerous at the same time, because, people get really into it and it becomes more than just exercise. And sometimes it's hard to let that go. When I was practicing really intensely for almost 10 years, it became part of my life. Like, it was my diet, it was my routine, it was everything. It becomes kind of your belief system, which is really positive at the same time, because it's, excellent values and stuff like that. But then, if you get injured or not even injured, but if your body isn't feeling amazing, it's hard to imagine yourself like going to the gym and lifting weights. Now, being on like the other side of all that, I'm like, okay, this is like functional movement. Like, you need to be able to jump. You need to be able to pull yourself up. You need to be able to throw something and squat down and pick something up. It's not only about flexibility, and it's not only about the spiritual practice and meditation. And it's got to be a little bit of everything. That's
a really interesting way of putting it. And I know, in terms of CrossFit, that's a phrase that has come up. I haven't heard it that much recently, but it's true. I guess the idea should be behind all this stuff to just be functional, to be like, we've got to get around, we've got to do things. What would you say to those people they might look at yoga and they're like, that's really weird. Or they might look at weightlifting and they go, that's really weird. Like, whatever they're looking at, they could help them. But You know it could help them. They're going, that looks really weird.
What would I say to those people? I think that, with the yoga practice, with any practice, it's about being functional. It's about having a functional body. And it's not so much about, whatever sport you're in. I mean, there's a certain level of people who are in professional sports where like that's their job and their whole life. And that's another level. But for most people, like in my classes that I teach, they're doing yoga to be healthy and to be limber and to move around. And that's what it's all about. And I think that, if you can't pick something up off the floor and you can't squat down, or you couldn't pull yourself up if you had to, I mean, these are the things we need to be able to do just as humans. And yoga will give you a lot of that stuff, but it won't give you all of it. And sometimes you need to step up onto something or hang from a bar and just develop that kind of strength and that kind of movement complexity. When I first started going to the gym and just experimenting with like hanging on a bar or, walking up a hill really quickly or something like that, I used to feel like my body was useless. Like I had this beautiful yoga practice, like handstands and very flowy and really nice to watch and to do as well. But then I'd go do something else and I just feel like I cannot do this.
Now in the article, after writing it and sort of making these suggestions, what, if any, feedback, what has the feedback been like?
The feedback has been really positive. I mean, the feedback I've received has been really positive. I know that there's a lot of people in my community who believe in what I'm doing. Like a lot of my students, I'm kind of like winning them over slowly but surely. There's also the other side of the spectrum. Like, you read the comments on the article and some of the comments are like, super negative. Like this girl is just, bringing yoga as the physical thing and it's not just exercise and we shouldn't be training for yoga. And what about meditation? What about these other things? And, that stuff is also valid, but, there's definitely people that are going to be not into it, not into the idea of I should be lifting weights. Because for some reason that doesn't like mesh with the spiritual practice and that doesn't mesh with meditation and with being a good person. And that's the part that I'm kind of like, you can have it all. You can do it all. You can sit in meditation and then you can go to the gym afterwards and lift weights.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I've noticed a really meditative aspect to weightlifting. So for yourself, what are some of the similarities between these seemingly opposite things, yoga and weightlifting?
The similarities, I think sometimes it's just how you approach it. Like I approach everything physical that I do the same way I would approach yoga just because I've been doing it for so long and that's like my habit and my pattern. And, the focus, like when I go to Olympic lifting class, it's, the focus is there and you have to breathe and you have to breathe the right way or else you're not going to make the lift. And you just have to be there and you have to be present. And if you're thinking about a million things, you never lift as well. And it makes you tune in and go to that place where you would probably go when you were doing yoga. It's different. I mean, the yoga practice is so long in length. Like I used to do yoga for 2 to 3 hours at a time. And over the course of 3 hours, your mind kind of goes in and out. You think about this, you think about that. It's like you get a little hungry, you go to the bathroom, have a glass of water, come back. I find when I'm in the gym lifting weights, it's a little bit more like I go in, do the lifts, sit, lift some more, do some pull-ups, do some stretching. And it's just the whole experience is a little bit quicker. And I find that I stay a little bit more focused. Also, you have to pay attention more. I mean, you're lifting heavy things sometimes over your head, and it's a bit of a hazard if you don't pay attention very well. So, yeah, it's a different kind of focus.
Personally, what have you noticed change since you've started lifting?
I mean, lots of things have changed. In my body, my practice now is way more well-rounded. Like, there's still things that I'm definitely working on, little weak spots and stuff like that, but it's way more well-rounded. I mean, when I started, I did a weekend course, and it was on upper body gymnastic strength. And I thought, like, going into it, I was going to be like, it was going to be totally fun. I was like, whatever, I do yoga, my upper body is strong. This is no big deal. And I realized, you know, how weak I was and how weak the weak spots were. And there was so much imbalance. And so that's really cleaned itself up. You know, my strength has gone up like about 1,000,000%, which is really awesome. But that's also just the nature of what it is. You know, like yoga isn't supposed to make you the strongest human, like weightlifting will make you. But these little aches and pains that I used to have kind of gone away. I mean, like my hamstrings are in way better shape. Like I feel like my glutes are way more functional. Parts of my body that were being overstretched now no longer feel overstretched. Now I'm starting to like tighten up a little bit and solidify a little bit more. And now when I go back to my yoga practice, it's so nice because I can practice the splits and I can practice these deep stretches and not have to worry about, oh, am I overdoing it right now? Am I going to overstretch something? Because I know the next day I'm going to go back to the gym and tighten it back up. And stretching feels really different when you have that bit of resistance, when you have that bit of tension in your body already.
Tiny Conversations is a podcast featuring small discussions on big ideas. If you liked what you've heard, you can subscribe in iTunes or Stitcher. Our theme music is by Broke for Free. Kathryn teaches yoga, strength training, and hand balancing workshops
all over the place, all over the GTA, but also in other cities as well.
And if you want to learn more, you can reach her on Twitter at Kathryn Bruni. I tweet at Brian Colley. Thanks for listening.